and former City of Atlanta police officer Marc Harrold. We also have, I believe, our in-session correspondents, Beth Karras and Jean Casares. Mark, this has been my question all along, and especially today. Court is dark. We've seen on her testimony from 8 accusers, not 1, not 2, 8 accusers. How do you defend a case like this?
Well, this is a tough defense. There's a lot of witnesses. They've tried to paint a little bit that maybe these witnesses have motive. They've said money. They've said that some of these witnesses felt abandoned because, you know, the defendant here didn't follow up with them and this sort of thing. But that just goes to how successful he was at grooming them. I mean, when you look at how long this grooming has lasted, how these individuals, some of the victims still had relationships with Jerry Sandusky years afterwards, it shows how potent that relationship was and how he was able to groom them. As far as the defense, you know, Al Chesley, and I applaud him for coming forward and talking about his experiences. That takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage to do. But he said that, of course, the defense attorneys are trying to re-victimize the victims. And I understand what he's talking about, and as a police officer, I got very frustrated with that. But, of course, as we know as attorneys, to give zealous advocacy, what they're really doing is they're going through the chronology. They're trying to shave things off of the testimony, because with 52 counts, they don't think they're going to get them off completely. But I think they do think they can get some counts where the prosecution's not going to meet the very high burden of beyond a reasonable doubt. So I understand when people say they're re-victimizing the victims, but as far as the defense attorneys, what they're trying to do is go through and, whether it's chronology or other lapses in the testimony, try to poke enough holes to get some of these counts either, you know, not guilty or hang the jury on them.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That must be part of the defense strategy, because there are so many counts. There are 52 counts, and we know some of those counts, Mark, relate to victims number, if I'm correct, victim number 2 and victim number 8, and they didn't testify, right? Those incidents were testified to by McQueary and the janitor. And so perhaps that's where they can possibly hang the jury, although I think Mike McQueary's testimony is some of the most credible testimony. But what do you think about the possibility of perhaps Jerry Sandusky taking the stand? Because this is a guy who is used to perhaps walking in to parents' homes and convincing them to allow their children to play at Penn State. You know, he's a salesman. Do you think he'll get on the witness stand and try to sell himself to this jury?
Well, I think that it shows a couple things if his attorneys put him on the witness stand. The first would be there's no way to have a trial in this part of the country. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. There's no way to have a trial in this part of the country without some of the people having a lot of allegiance to Penn State. There may be someone or some of the attorneys, the thought would be that maybe we can hang the jury on some of these counts or maybe on all of them if we just get one juror. But I think it would show a lot of desperation. They put him up there, and anything that hasn't been able to come in, as we all know the rules of evidence, just because it's there, just because it's true, doesn't mean it's admissible. If he gets on the stand, they're able to ask, the scope of what they can ask and what they can bring in against him goes way up, because his credibility is at issue, and the admissibility of a lot of items that may not have been included, that may have been excluded pretrial, can come in. I don't think he'll take the stand. If he does, I think it shows how desperate they are, and they're basically just throwing up, you know, maybe a bad football analogy in this context, a Hail Mary, and hoping that he can bring some of those jurors back and show that he's a bad guy, he was inappropriate, but he didn't do the types of things that actually amount to the elements of these very serious crimes.
Well, that is what we will be looking for, right? Next week, will Jerry Sandusky take the witness stand? Marc Harrold, thank you so much for joining me.
Sure, thank you.
Well, this